Winston Churchill said, never, 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 ever give up. If you're going through hell, keep going. So when you are faced with problems or faced with somebody saying no, um, resolute persistence is the key. You just figure out a way to get there. Michael Jordan and many others have said, leaders just find a way to get things done.
Oh, that's great. Have you ever had someone believe in you before you even believed in yourself? Today, I sit down with Bert Thornton, former president and COO of Waffle House, author and career mentor, who is a testament to the power of perseverance, guidance, and embracing every opportunity to grow. From his days as a college football player at Georgia Tech to leading one of America's most iconic restaurant chains, Bert's journey is filled with the lessons on resilience, adaptability, and the value of investing in people. Bert's story proves that the success isn't just about personal achievements. It's about lifting others up along the way. His insights on mentorship, leadership, and navigating setbacks show that a no isn't the end, but rather an opportunity to reassess, pivot, and come back even stronger. Prepare for an episode filled with wisdom, humility, and game-changing insight. Bert Thornton's perspective will reshape how you view success on this episode of Navigating No. Bert, thank you so much. This is a long time coming for sure.
It is.
I appreciate the Waffle House. I think I need that for Navigating No right here, or Blue Stiley on my shirt myself.
Well, Blue, it's just a pleasure to be with you. Ever since you and I got together at the Pilma Super Summit in New Orleans, of course, you were the MC and you did an absolutely fabulous job. And you introduced me because I did a little speaking there. I have followed you and read your book and just am absolutely enthralled with everything you're doing. You have so much energy and you're doing so many great things. I'm proud of you.
Well, coming from you, honestly, that's great because we hit it off right at the very beginning, and I loved introducing you and meeting your wife, Kathy. And you were just such an open person. And in my life growing up, I had so many mentors that made a difference in my life. And I don't care how old you are or if you're younger than me, I can learn something from you. And one of your main topics on the speech that you gave that day was about the power of mentorship. And I was, even as the MC, I was listening and taking notes the entire time, and you had me hooked. So having you on is very special to me because you are a mentor to me. And luckily, I've met you in person, and you also bring the energy. You're a little slower than I am, but otherwise, we are golden, and I love it because you do bring the energy, Bert. And thank you so much for being a friend and a mentor to me.
Well, I'm slower because you're a baby boy and I'm 80 years old. So you have to give me a bye in the first round.
Oh, yeah, I got to get by. That's
Yeah.
true. That's awesome.
Incidentally, of course, you wrote a book called The Sum of Four, which I love: mentor, develop, execute, and succeed. How to maximize and accelerate your achievement. Um, I have given that book to a lot of people, and I think I told you before, Ben Balch, who is the CFO at Country Music Awards. He and I do a little work together. I'm actually mentoring him in some of the things that he's trying to get done. And I said, I'm going to send you this book. And he said, no, I've got it. I've read it. It's great. So
It, you know how it.
your reputation precedes you.
Fair enough. I love that. It's funny because you're an author too. You've written a couple of books, and how special is it when, like, what success looks to like an author? You could be a New York Times bestselling author. You could sell 100 million books or something like that. And in my mind, it was always being on an airplane and looking over and seeing someone reading my book has been my goal with my book. And it's great when I hear a story about when someone tells me like, oh, I actually read your book. And I didn't put two and two together. That's you. And so your story like that just it hits a heartwarming emotion for me, and I appreciate that. And thank you for
My
spreading the
heart,
word.
my heartwarming emotion is that I'm not sure that you know this because it's happened since you and I have talked, but my first book, Find an Old Gorilla, won a national book award. And the AUPHA, the Association of University Programs and Healthcare Administration, named it one of 18 books in 2023 and 2024 to be recommended in over 100 colleges and universities. So, and it's now in its second print. So,
Oh, Bert, congratulations.
we are proud and grateful.
Well, and I actually have, for the audience who's watching, I actually have it, and it's Find an Old Gorilla: Pathways Through a Jungle of Business and Life, and it is a quick read, but it is a very impactful read. And my greatest mentor to me was my martial arts instructor, and he was way older than I was, but he was just this wealth and fountain of knowledge. And this whole book is about connecting yourself to someone who has been through the fire that you want to go through. Because
Right.
why waste all your time? Why go through all the pitfalls and all the heartache and such if you can find someone who has been through that? And
Well,
that book,
that's the premise of the book. If you wake up one morning and realize you have to go through a jungle, which is basically what we do every day, but if you find that, it would make sense to find an old gorilla, because the old gorilla, and take them along, because the old gorillas know where all the paths and the quicksand, and they have the scars that you don't need to get if you just listen, pay attention, and follow the leader. So, and I actually was a brown belt in judo as a kid at
I
MacDill
did
Air
not
Force.
know that.
Uh, Things you don't know. But no, but you're like a 80, 100 black belt or something like that. But I resonated. There's so many things in that Sum of Four book that I resonated with, and one of them was your journey through judo and um, karate
Yeah.
with your instructor.
Hmm.
And I mean, that is the ultimate mentoring experience, not just trading ideas on business, but actually,
Living them.
yeah, it's not only, well, people think that karate and judo are physical. It's all mental.
Hmm.
And once you reach a certain physical aspect, but golly, that was so well done. I really enjoyed the context of that engagement with your mentor, your instructor.
Well, thank you. I feel blessed because I did have him from when I was 8 and on, right? I mean, that's a long time to be around someone who really is your greatest cheerleader in your support system, someone
Yeah.
that wants you to succeed. And whether that's a coach or a friend's parent, there's somebody out there for a lot of people. And your book is about finding that gorilla. Have you always been able to, I mean, you played collegiate ball at Georgia Tech, football. Like, who were your mentors when you were a kid? Did you realize the power of connecting with somebody who has been through that fire at an early age, or did you have to learn that?
Absolutely not. As a kid, you just play the ball where it lies. And, um, you know, um, long-term thinking is tomorrow or next week when you're pretty young.
Hmm.
You're all tactical boots on the ground, get it done every day. Only later in life do you have the opportunity. When you get a little life experience, you become strategic, meaning you start seeing around corners and planning things and what really is a long-term situation. But my first mentor was my dad, who was just an absolutely fantastic guy. One of the most honest people I've ever known, and hardworking, and just full of a lot of common sense.
Hmm.
And then, of course, um, coaches, junior high school, um, college, and then I guess my last and most recent mentor was the chairman and CEO at Waffle House. He was a fraternity brother at Georgia Tech, which is how I got into the business.
Hmm.
Uh, he went off to Harvard to get his MBA, thought he wanted to be an investment banker, and what he realized was that he could make more money and have more fun in the Waffle House business if he took it to another level, because Pop and Tom, Joe Rogers Sr. and Tom Fortin are the founders. never envisioned Waffle House being more than 12 or 14 restaurants. And when it got up to 40, they panicked a little bit. Joe got into the business, realized that he needed help, called me and a couple other folks, and went to work. He ended up being chairman. I ended up being president. So that was quite a journey in and
Did
of
you
itself.
did
He
you
was kind of
expect it to be?
he didn't have a clue what was going on. He was kind of plowing the jungle
Mhm.
ahead, and pulling me along behind. But together we worked together to form, what's a fairly iconic restaurant organization in America today.
Well, you were synergistic together, lifting each other up at the same time off of your strengths and weaknesses. But along the way, did you ever see that it was going to be more than 40? Because I think the last number I knew was in the thousands, was it not?
Yeah, 2100.
Mm-hmm.
2100. There is something going on in America today called inflation and high prices.
Uh-huh.
If you and Heidi have been to the grocery store lately and bought a dozen eggs,
Uh-huh.
and I get calls every day because right now Waffle House has a 50-cent surcharge on each egg on the menu. It's a temporary charge.
Uh-huh.
There was actually a CNN article that said Waffle House sells 290 million eggs a year. They missed it. The real number is 353 million eggs a year.
Just a
And
few shy.
right now we're losing money on every egg. And you cannot sustain a business by doing that. We lose money at the end of the year. So
Sure.
we have to become revenue neutral in that situation. So, but it's temporary. When things die down, we'll adjust down or eliminate or whatever we need to do.
When you find a path around it, I mean, it's like maybe you decrease the price of your milkshake or something like that. But I was just talking to a local restaurant business owner here, and he was like, "Man, I've got to increase my prices just because I have to be able to make money. I can't, if I'm buying an egg for 81 cents, there has to be some pull and give." So I can understand that pain point.
Yeah, I sit on the board of Studer Community Institute here in Pensacola, and one of the things we do is mentor businesses, young leaders and young businesses, and one of them is an organization called Native Cafe, which is out on Pensacola Beach. It's been around quite a while, but young leadership, great folks, and they've called a meeting, and the sole purpose of the meeting is to say, what the heck do we do now? The prices have gone crazy. Do we increase the menu or decrease the portions, or what should we do? And I've got a lot of advice and a lot of scars.
Yeah. But at the same time, this isn't the first time that we've ever had, let's call it an egg crisis. But at the same time, you have certain challenges that, for example, the Waffle House as the COO, I am sure you experienced. What were some of the biggest challenges that you experienced with growing the business and basically franchising out? Like what did that look like? I'm sure this was not, eggs are not the biggest problem in the basket.
No, and the biggest problems are not the temporary problems. The egg prices will come down. So you take a temporary stance to become revenue neutral.
Hmm.
I have three daughters. I went to Georgia Tech. I have three daughters. They all went to Georgia Tech. Bright girls, mothers. I have 8 grandchildren, all successful business women. And but I always told them that problems that you can solve with money are not big problems, even if you don't have the money. The big problems are the ones that you can't solve with money. In that same light, problems with Waffle House and in business are not the problems that are temporary. You can take a temporary fix. The problems that really should concern you are the problems that will sustain,
Mm-hmm.
that are going to kill you long term. And in the Waffle House business, and frankly, in any relationship service oriented business, it's all about the people.
Mm-hmm.
And when I took the helm of Waffle House, I looked around and we had really good tactical people. That means unit managers, 1 restaurant, district managers, 3 restaurants, because that's tactical. That's boots on the ground, get it done every day. But the first strategic job is that of division manager, which is many districts. And that's when you have to start thinking ahead, seeing around corners, asking yourself, what am I not thinking about? That's really kind of the first strategic level. I looked around, and a lot of the folks we had in those roles had just been sort of promoted over their heads. And really, we were opening a Waffle House every 4 days.
Wow.
Now, every 4 days, that means you need a new division manager every 6 weeks. And many of the ones we had, I knew we were going to have to say, look, you just need to back up a step.
Mm-hmm.
I looked around in the unit and district ranks, and I found 3 or 4 people that I thought would end up doing that division job. So to your point, the first thing I had to do was figure out a way to recruit and train and then develop people who could fill that position, who could do that job, and then make sure that we kept them happy and that they stayed. We did that
while keeping the brand and the image of the Waffle House too,
yes,
at the same time.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and we did that. We got a bunch of folks. We got them in. We put in a systems sustain. If you don't have a system, don't count on anything sustaining. So we put in 2 systems for recruiting and then for developing that brought those people along. And right now, I mean, we just have so much talent in the Waffle House system. It's just absolutely incredible.
Well, I think one of the things that you hit on to go back to is that you mentioned about the relationships, and your business has become successful because it's relational. It's not transactional. It's not just about the next egg. It is about what I think you mentioned. I heard you say one time, maybe on one of our mentorship phone calls, is that it somewhere in this nation, someone is sitting down at a Waffle House and they're having a conversation and they are learning to connect with each other. And that is one of the services that you provide. It's almost like a Starbucks where you go and you can read a book or you can connect with people. It's like you're providing more than just a breakfast.
Yeah, we are. I mean, let me tell you now, in a time of crisis, people go to the Waffle House not for breakfast, but to get together with people and decide what the heck to do now. I mean, that's kind of the neat meeting place. I always laugh because I hear about the angst and the strife that's going on in America. And then you go to the Waffle House and you just see a lot of people getting along and talking about what the heck we need to do now. It's a good venue for that. You talked about relationships and what have you. You've got your book, Navigating No, and
which is not out yet. Navigating No is not out yet, but it's in the works. Thank you.
I can't wait to read it.
Thank you. We're working on the podcast right now, Bert.
So I've been blessed. I haven't had that many no's in my life, and the ones that I've had, I've refused to view as no's. But
why? How is that possible? Because I agree with you. A lot of our guests get on here and they're like, I didn't really receive a lot of no's. And I think part of that is that you just don't see it as a no. You just see it as like as a setback that kind of like might stop you for a minute, but it's like you just keep moving forward. So why is it not a no?
It's all in perspective. No is not a hard stop. It may be a guardrail, meaning stay away from that, or it may be a detour, meaning you just have to take another path. But no simply calls for an adjustment or some sort of redirection if you want to
get to that. Yes.
Or just achieve. Joe Rogers Jr., who, as I said, he's actually the guy who built Waffle House, pulling me along with him. And I worked for Joe for 40 years, and he was famous. Now, he wasn't famous, he was infamous to me. He never said yes. When you took an idea to him, he almost always said, no, we don't want to do that. And he did that to see two things: to see, one, how strongly you felt about it,
Hmm.
and then two, for you to go back and regroup and get your facts and your information together and come back at him.
Oh, that's
Um,
gold. I mean, that goes for any industry. All right.
yeah,
It's
sure.
and personally too. It's like if you're told no, what are you going to do with that information? Is it just to test your knowledge, or is it to come back with something better? It's not that hard stop. I loved your analogy of the guardrails. It's not a stop sign, it's a guardrail.
Yeah. So, I'd say, Joe, I think we need to do this. No, let's don't do that now. Well, the first time I heard that, I went off and I thought, what is he thinking? That's the obvious answer. So I waited a week or two and went back and I said, let's circle back and talk about that again. We talked about it and he said, "Hey, okay, that sounds good." And so I realized all that did was shorten the span. We went from 2 weeks to the next day. He'd say no, and I'd come back next day and say, "All right, here's the deal now." And it wasn't always yes, but let me tell you, 95% of the time, um, once I got him understanding my point of view on the thing, um, it was pretty good because um, he was the technical guy.
Hmm.
He was MBA. He was the uh, finance. He was the administrative side of the business. Now he was washing dishes in Waffle Houses when he was 14 years old, so he understood the business. But I was kind of the process guy and the relationship guy in the business, and that synergistic that um, we combined to really make some magic happen. I just, to this day, I am just in awe of what he was able to build from 30 or 40, I think 45 when we started, to 2,100 restaurants today, um, doing several $1 billion with a B a
Well,
year.
you sell that
And
many eggs, I hope you make a couple dollars for sure.
we're making a dollar too, but there's not that much money in the restaurant business. It's not as bad as the grocery store business, but
Sure.
but but
I
we're
think
doing okay.
I think I could listen to you say restaurant all day long.
How to say it?
You say restaurant, or it's your
A
accent, right?
restaurant,
Yeah,
restaurant.
I don't say it like that. Us Spokane
No,
boys don't say it like that. That's
I,
awesome.
I know we're all Southern boys down here. We don't pronounce things properly,
Yeah.
perhaps. Yeah.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, you were part of that journey too, though. I mean, the reason that the Waffle House became successful isn't just because of Joe. It was because this conglomerate of all of these confidence team people that he brought in and that he drug alongside, and you were part of that. And
Yeah.
do you look back and say, "Wow, I did not picture this, but man, I'm kind of proud of this."
Yeah. Very proud. It was such, in the early days, it was such a fist fight every day trying to take when I got into the business, the people who were in it were not of the quality that, I mean, they could cook and they were good at waiting on people, but they had, some of them had social problems and some of them were just different kinds of folks. But the thing that I love about this business today is that, as I said, we have transformed that from a fledgling seat of the pants operation to a national icon that so many people are proud of.
Yeah.
So many people who work in the business, and they're just such great people. I mean, we've got um, our folks in senior leadership positions could go anywhere and do anything. I
Well, and
mean, because
you're making a difference in the world too. I mean, think about how many lives you've reached. And I don't just mean like the customers, like obviously to go into a Waffle House and have a nice experience and a great meal and have a conversation with somebody or create a relationship with somebody is different than the cooks or the servers or the hostess or the director or anything like that. It's like you're changing lives because you're giving them these skill sets. It's like this combination of like changing lives
well, I got to tell you
in
now,
our
our
country.
our salespeople change a lot of lives. You can't, some of them, I think, could probably take psychology degrees, yes, and pass because I mean, they're kind of like your bartender. They hear all the stories, they know all the kids and all the grandkids and all the problems. And not only are they serving bacon and eggs and coffee, and waffles, but um, they have a real relationship with our customers. I did a survey out in Dallas one time. I said, "What is the thing you like most about your job?"
Hmm.
And when I say I was in Dallas, but this was throughout the Midwest, from basically from Detroit to Phoenix, and I I thought it was going to be money because our salespeople make a lot of money,
Hmm.
and that was number three. Number
Really?
one, my relationship with my customers. Number two was my relationship with my fellow associates. And number three was money. So they they change a lot of lives too.
Yeah.
J.C. Penney said one time that the most important place in a retail organization is the last 24 inches, which is the counter between the clerk and the cashier and
Hmm.
the customer. And that, you know, as president of the company, if I didn't come to work for a week, um, folks wouldn't notice because I was strategic.
Hmm.
If that salesperson behind the counter doesn't come to work for a week, everybody
Yes.
wants to know why, where
Hmm.
is she? What's going on? Where is he? What's the problem? So
Well,
um,
that's the power is that you created a community, like let's call it Cheers, where everybody knows your name and you have these connections with people that are priceless. And it's like when you walk in, if the hostess does know your name and they put their arm around you, that makes you feel pretty special as a customer. But then also as an employee, when I walk in and I know the cooks and I know everybody, it's like this team build where it's like you look forward to going to work. And it sounds like
yeah, I
you
mean,
hit those two things.
you can run a business like a business or run a business like a family, and we run it like a family. There is a tremendous bond within each Waffle House,
Hmm.
and even Waffle Houses within a city. And then there is another tremendous bond with the leadership who get together frequently in meetings. And I used to hold a town hall meeting for every um, region, if you want to call it that, in the United States. For example, here in Pensacola, we would get the people from basically Mobile to Panama City and meet in Pensacola. And it was not only unit managers, district managers, division managers, region managers, area vice president, the area vice president, or in some cases two, but it was salespeople, which everybody else calls waitresses, grill operators, which everybody else calls cooks. We invited them all, and I would my deal was I would tell them what we're doing in Waffle House, why we're doing it, try to give them a sort of a 10,000-foot look, a global look,
Hmm.
and also um, pitch them on owning Waffle House stock. You know, Waffle House is employee owned, and then I would open it up for questions, and I would ask questions until they got through with no more questions, and I would tell them, I would say, now, you know, if you have in the future a question that nobody else can answer,
Hmm.
you know, call me. And I would give my cell phone number.
Oh,
I mean, there's 70,000 people out there right now behind the Waffle House counters with my cell phone. And I would say, you know, if something happens and I want you to go through the chain of command, but if they can't get it done, you call me. And I would say that, and then the senior vice president would say, just before you call that number, take this number down. And and then the area vice president would say, just before you call that number, take. So you know, but the good news was everybody had everybody's number, and we headed off a lot of problems before they really became problems.
When you guys could solve them together, right? And it's like you when you invited these people, they felt special and they felt included, and
Yeah.
their concerns were actually addressed. I
I
cannot
was
tell you.
always surprised. I was always surprised at the few calls that I did get, but I did get a few. I
Now
would
it's
get a
just me.
call from I I would get a call from a salesperson working third shift in Phoenix City, Alabama, that would say, Johnny's not doing me right again. He's cooking Susie's orders before he cooks mine. So I mean, you get some of those kinds of calls, but you also get calls from a unit manager who said something has happened. There's a policy that's been created. I understand the change, but you
Hmm.
need to know how badly it's hurting my income in this particular situation. Matter of fact, that just came up.
Mm.
I retired in 2011. I got that call and alerted somebody, and we all sat down and solved the problem
Well,
instead of losing the great manager.
100%. Did you, but I'm assuming also sometimes you probably got phone calls that were heartfelt and up to you as well. Like, did you experience that? Did people call out and say, "Hey, this our manager deserves some kind of recognition," or I'm sure
Great.
you didn't always get the negative calls either, because what better way than to go to the very top and say, "Hey, Fred really went above and beyond." And did you receive that call?
I do. I do. I still do. I still get those calls. And those are there are two kinds of, I call them, you get complaint letters, which I call onion letters, and then you get the good letters, which I call orchid letters. You
Uh-huh.
get the you get the onion calls and you get the orchid calls. But that's all part of being, you know, if you're high profile, you're a target. So sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good.
Well, with as many locations and having your number to 70,000 people, when you walk into any Waffle House, did you get recognized? Did people know who you were? Or you could be pretty covert and you could go in and you could be the secret Santa or the secret shopper. Did you ever do that?
Never. I mean, it's not possible for me today to walk into a Waffle House anywhere in the United States and somebody not know me.
Perfect.
No, no, I was there
Yeah.
40 years. I
Yeah.
raised the people who are running the business now. I had lunch with Keith Hill, who's the CEO at Baskerville Donovan Engineering here in Pensacola. We had lunch at number 580. We number one with Bill, and that's 586 on Gregory Street in Pensacola. And it just kind of crazy. I kind of lost my train of thought there. What were we talking about?
Yeah. Are you ever recognized when you walk in and you said no? And in fact, I actually walked in to number 586 with a
Yeah. Oh,
C.
yeah. And yeah. But here's the reason. Senior moment there. Forgive me, but the point I was trying to make was
But
that.
you're still fast.
But there's a gal behind the counter that's been there 29 years. Her name is Bridget, and just an absolutely fabulous, fantastic gal, African American gal that I love, 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 love. She is just so great with the customers. But she's been not with Waffle House, but in that restaurant for 29 years through two rebuilds of the restaurant.
Wow.
And I think she may have been standing there when we bought the property. Maybe had to move a little bit so we could build a location. But the end of the story is that, there's people who've been in Waffle House a long time. And we actually keep track of that. So there's very little chance I could walk into a Waffle House and not see somebody that I was in Publix 3 days ago. And a gal who had never met me walked up and said, "You're Bert." I said, "Guilty."
Ah,
She said, "I've seen your picture." So
oh, Yeah,
I
you
don't.
have a famous picture of you at the Waffle House over the counter, and it's great. I think I'm gonna have to use that for your intro one, Mister, because it is a great shot. Uh,
Yeah.
what were some as a leader in the C level and C suite group? Were you navigating these challenges and these no's? Like, is it just because you had a great team around you, or are you outside of Waffle House that you had these mentors? Is that what kind of brought the book together as well? Like, how did you navigate the challenges within Waffle House and then through your personal life?
Well, I we just keep coming back to these no's. If you don't think it's a no, it's not a no. It's just something that needs to be fixed. Um, I was told when I was in junior high school, seventh grade, no, you can't play football. You're too small. Um, Eighth grade, I played. Ninth grade, I was captain of the team. Played in high school, did moderately well, and went to Georgia Tech on a full football scholarship and played for Bobby Dodd, who, of course, is famous. NCR, I got out of the Army. I had the two extremes. I had a wonderful year in Miami and a not so wonderful year in South Vietnam. I got out of the Army and went to work for NCR in their fledgling IT division, first as a systems analyst and then as a salesman. And all my life, everybody told me I'd be a great salesman. And I hated it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sat down. The my boss, the senior operator there in the NCR in Tampa, called me in and he said, it's not working. I said, you're right, it's not working. And I've got in my pocket here, I pulled out a resignation letter. I said, I've been carrying it around just trying to find the right moment to give it to you. And he said, I'm so happy we agree. But that's because I loved the IT business, but I didn't like the big corporate hassle, and I didn't like the technical side of things. So because I'm a relationship guy and a process guy,
Mm-hmm.
and so I went to work for um, Waffle House, and uh, it was just a completely different experiences. There were challenges every day and no's every day, but all of them could be solved um, with a different slant on the process and perseverance,
Mm-hmm.
which is the key.
Well, and I think what I wanted to ask you is that when you put the together your book, like I think one of the greatest gifts now is you as a public speaker, you as an author, you as uh, in leadership, is to be able to give back and to be able to share that message and hopefully change lives in other people. And it doesn't depend. I mean, it just depends on your platform. So, I mean, you could be young and you could change somebody's life, and you could be old and change somebody's life. And your book really hits home with that because it mentions that it doesn't matter where you're from or how much money you have or what your background is. You can make a difference in somebody's life. And you brought all of these ideas together with your book, and you give your time so willingly. And
Well,
what brought the book together, and when did you realize that you had a gift to give to people?
people ask me, they say you're retired, I'm about to retire. What should I do? And I said, well, here's the deal. Um, the first week you're going to feel guilty about not going to work. The second week you're going to feel great about it. The third week you're going to feel guilty about feeling great about it. Then you need to take 3 to 6 months off to decompress and just be you. And then you need to find some place where you can add or create value. And of course, the best place to create value is in somebody else's life. I discovered early in my retirement that my friends who were the happiest weren't the ones taking the most cruises and playing the most golf. They were the ones who were reciprocating. And by that, I mean giving back to other people to help them become as successful as they want and deserve to be. And that is my stance in life right now. I've got enough money for lunch tomorrow, and everything I do. My goal right now is to do the most good for the most number of people over the longest amount of time. That's what makes me happy. And it makes me super happy to connect two people or a group of people um, who are trying to solve a problem, putting the right people together to create value and help that synergistic effort move the ball down the court. I just am overjoyed. I know we talked about Ben Balch, the CFO from
Country Music
Country
Awards.
CMA. You and I talked about him offline another time, and you called him, and you
Mm-hmm.
guys talked. I mean, how good is that? That's
Well,
wonderful.
and it's you're creating these relationships that don't have to be transactional. It's like we all have this knowledge, experience, and expertise that we can share with somebody else and bring somebody else up. And you will never know when you can meet someone who can change your life. And I
Right.
know that for example, you met him, I believe, at a Publix,
Right.
right? And it's like
Yeah.
I
In the meat department.
in the meet. Perfect, Bert. No, you don't know. At any moment, you could meet somebody who could change your life. And so you have to be open for that. And when you know the people, let's call it networking, when people are in your front of your mind and they're at the top of mind, you start to put those together like Lego. I loved Legos as a kid, and so do my kids. But it's like you start to piece these things together and you see an outcome in your mind, and you're like, wow, I could create this. Well, in reality, you're creating these relationships that are just these tributaries that go into something bigger, right? And it's how
You
amazing
are
is it?
wise. You are wise, wise, wise beyond your years, Blue.
That's
That
because I read your book.
now, you don't you don't have to meet people because they can do something for you.
No,
You
no
have
strings
to
attached.
you have to meet people because that relationship can manifest into something spectacular. You may never see him again. You may never talk to Ben Balch again,
Hmm.
but he knows who you are and you know who he is, and you know what your mutual strengths are. Don't be surprised if he calls you with some sort of a problem that he read something in your book that he thinks you can help him with.
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, I think it's just important to. One of the things my first book, Find an Old Gorilla, did was it got picked up all over the Southeast, and I did a lot of presentations, and I did a lot of I did some podcasts, I did radio interviews, I did a couple of TV deals, and in that I met a ton of people that I didn't see for weeks, months, even years, but later those people have played a big part in my life for some reason or another. So,
Well, and
you know,
you could have said something to them. You could have mentioned something on that podcast or on that TV interview or something in your book that changes their life. And you may never
I would hope
know.
so.
You may
I would hope
never
so.
know. And and I know that you've experienced this when you get that phone call, that email, or that text from someone and they say, do you remember when you said this because it changed and impacted me and changed the trajectory of my life? You made a difference. And how I think that's part of the giving back is like there's nothing more special than that. There really is. I call them like parental dividends with our kids, right? And when Heidi and I teach our kids something, or our two kids, and they go and they do something and they don't know we're watching and they act a certain way, it is the most rewarding thing as a parent to see
Right.
them blossom and do the right thing, even though maybe the wrong thing is easier. And it's so amazing. And to receive those phone calls and things from people that something I said at a karate class years and years ago, or when I was in Japan, it makes you feel worthy. It makes you feel valuable, like you've given something to this world. And you are absolutely doing that. So I
Well,
know that you're
it's
getting it.
magic. It's magic. And
Yes.
I say again, I think a successful life is about adding value, and where better to add value than in another person's life. There is no greater honor, no greater calling, and no greater reward than helping other people become whatever they want to be,
Well, and
which is
if you have good people in your life, you have a beautiful life. That is that whole success, because success means something different to somebody else than it does for me. And
The number one feedback I get on the first book, Find an Old Gorilla, whether it's a personal note, an email, a text, or somebody sees me on the street, the number one thing I hear is this book arrived at just the right time in my life.
wow.
And yeah, I mean, how powerful is that? This book arrived at just the right time in my life. So, I mean, there's a lot in that book, and I hasten to say it, that those aren't my ideas. I just, in creating that book, I have mentored a lot of people, starting with my three daughters and their friends, and then folks at Georgia Tech, not only students, but faculty and staff, and then later a ton of people at Waffle House. And then when I retired, and I also kept another, when I would mentor them, I would pay attention. I would write down the questions they asked, and I would write down the answers that they gave, and I would put it into a file,
Hmm.
another file of quotes and articles and things that just resonated with me. And so when I retired, I sat down and put those two files together, and that basically is what ended up being Find an Old Gorilla. And so, 80% of what's in Find an Old Gorilla are somebody else's thoughts, and I've tried to give everybody credit. Thoughts, concepts, things that make sense. It's not my stuff, but I've had the chance to write that down and give it to people, and apparently it's helped a lot of folks, for which
Well,
I'm very grateful.
and it's a story that you're telling through your words, through your vision, because you received it differently than somebody else might receive it. And I think you hit that it's the power of that influence. Sometimes we don't know how influential we can be on other people.
Yeah.
And it started with your kids, and then all of a sudden it blossomed, and that message starts to resonate. And I think that's the power of having a platform that you can spread that positive influence. And you've done that, and you did a great job with the book. It is a quick read, but it is a powerful read. And like I did read it in a day, but at the same time, it's like I have so many dog ears and notes in this, and it is impactful because it resonates with me, even if it's a voice or a quote from somebody else. And my book is also full of quotes, but it's my story and how I took that and how I interpreted it, and the way that I tell that story might resonate with somebody else. And I think that's the power that you have. And I would suggest to anybody to pick that book up.
The second book, from Find an Old Gorilla, which is High Impact Mentoring.
Everybody, we now have the same book that we're showing everybody if you're watching this online. Continue, Bert.
Now, that's talking about stories. Of course, I've heard you speak, and you are an absolutely terrific speaker. And one of the reasons you are is because you do what I think I like to do, and that is you tell your point in stories, because stories resonate with other people. There are a ton of Waffle House stories. Almost everything I'm trying to get across in high impact mentoring has a Waffle House story attached to it that is exponential of the point that I'm trying to make. You said something just a minute ago about you say things that make a difference in other people's lives. And, I thought about your book, Navigating No, and it occurred to me that there are actually two sides of navigating no. One side is hearing no and reacting, and the other side is learning how to say no in a
To
way
somebody else.
that sends people in the right direction. In one of the talks that I give, and it may be the one that I gave at the PILMA convention, the basic laws of success, I say that it's important to not, it's okay to say no, but it's important the way you say it. Somebody comes up behind you and says, "Hey, will you do that for me?" And you need to be ready to not to say, "Well, okay, well," you need to be ready to say, "No, I'd love to help you out, but I can't."
Mm-hmm.
And the example I give in that talk is, no, I'd love to help you out, but I can't. I got something else I got to do. It's going to keep me from doing that. And I hope you find somebody else real soon. The the really correct way to say that, if you think a lot of the person is, listen, I'd love to do that, but my plate is so full, I cannot give you the quality job that you deserve. That's different than saying, no, I'm not going to do that.
The
You
way
know?
that you deliver it, the
Yeah.
deliverer of the no is just as important as receiving it sometimes.
Yeah.
And you
And
hit
it's
the nail on the head.
the person who can't get the job done. You don't say, look, I'm going to have to let you go. You say, look, this job is just not right for you. You're going to be successful someplace, but it's not going to be here. I'm not going to hold you back. You need to find your tribe, and it's not here. This job is not right for you. So,
Has that been something that you've had learned? I mean, that's hard to deliver a no to someone is difficult. Like the more times you did it, was it easier and you started to form a more conversational way of delivering that, like you just mentioned, like, or at the very beginning, you're like, no, like you're fired or get out of here. It's like, did you have to learn from that? That's difficult.
yeah, you do learn. I actually had a LinkedIn post the other day, and I said there are 10 things you need. There are 10 things as a leader that are going to come up that you're going to need to address, and you need to be ready to address them right now. Don't wait until it comes, because you know at some point in time somebody that's really good is going to come up to you and say, I'm going to leave.
Hmm.
You need to be prepared right now and scripted for the first two or three things you say until you can get a hold of that conversation. So, yeah, I think a lot of this is just getting your fanny kicked a couple of times and learning what works and learning what doesn't work. And that's that's part of life. That's part of growing up. You know, you do a lot of things in life. Some of them work, some of them don't. The smart folks don't stick with the stuff that doesn't work. They find out what does work. And that's
Well,
where perseverance comes in. That's in that in that in the book, Find an Old Gorilla.
well, I think also like when you're the effort that is put in behind it, when you're trying to actually accomplish something, I'd say that the best way is not only to get the scars in, but to find someone who has the scars that can walk you through it, which is your
The Old
book.
Gorilla, yeah, yeah,
Yes.
that's exactly right. But Calvin Coolidge said, nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. The slogan, press on, has solved and will always solve the problems of the human race. So what he's saying, and Winston Churchill said, never, 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 ever give up. If you're going through hell, keep going. So when you are faced with problems or faced with somebody saying no, um, resolute persistence is the key. You just figure out a way to get there. Michael Jordan and many others have said, leaders just find a way to get things done.
Oh, that's great. Yes. Even if it's from another quote, I love that. That's awesome. If you were to sum up today, what is the one thing that you would want our listeners to know based off of someone with the experience and the leadership experience that you have that you would want, let's say, a younger generation to know or someone
Sure.
going through that problem? What is the one thing that you would want to leave today?
Yeah, I would say be successful at do things that make you happy. And even if you are confronted with negativism, a lot of no's, understand you can get wherever you want to be and do whatever you want to do if you're just persistent in your efforts. Keep on keeping on, and you will get there. And if you get sidelined, try and understand why. Was it something you didn't know? Was it something you didn't see? Was it an issue that you weren't educated on? Uh, if it's no, figure out why the other guy's saying no and fix it.
Oh, yes. And it's taking that experience or that knowledge and doing something with it.
Exactly.
And to find an old gorilla will only help with less scars.
I love it.
I love you, Bert. Thank you so much for spending just a little bit of time. And I cannot wait to visit a Waffle House with you because I want to see what your number looks like behind the counter, because I'm sure it's there.
Come on down. Bring Heidi with you.
I absolutely will. Thank you so much today, Bert.
Take care, my friend. Thank you
too.
for your time.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Navigating No. I hope you found today's conversation just as inspiring and insightful as I did. We'd love your help to make it even better. So, if you enjoyed this episode, we would love to hear your feedback. And if you think someone else could benefit from hearing it, please share it and help us spread optimism and positivity. We release a new interview every Monday, so don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening.